Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice to Radio. So today, we're going to be having a look at a new Alolan Dugtrio card. And this is an Alolan Dugtrio card that, shall we say, fits very, very nicely with a few of the other metal cards we've had revealed lately. And this is going to lead to some very beefy metal Pokemon. So if we start off with the basics here, we see that it's got 80 HP. 80 HP, honestly, at this stage, it's kind of annoying. It's really low, but it's not low enough to use Professor Ound's lecture. It's just low enough to be incredibly low. Boo, hiss, etc. You've got a retreat cost of 1, which is nice because it does grant you free retreat with a skateboard, or otherwise just using an energy. And the weakness to fire is fine, the resistance to psychic and therefore Garbodor is alright. The thing is, you've got 80 HP. So, okay, it takes Garbodor from, 4 items to 5, but honestly, it's just not terribly relevant here. You've not got much bulk. It is a metal Pokemon, though. Metal Pokemon is pretty gosh darn nice. Immediate hitting weakness on Gardevoir and Sylveon. And Gardevoir and Sylveon. I see what the card designers did there. So that's quite nice. You also get down Mize for doing extra damage, although honestly that's going to be largely irrelevant. We're not worried about damage too much. And some other stuff we're going to look at in just a moment. So our translation here comes from the lovely David Hochmann. Hey David. And really it is the ability with which we are primarily concerned here. That's the selling point. What it says is that reduced damage by 10 done to each of your metal Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon's attacks. So essentially your metal Pokemon take 10 less damage from all of your opponent's Pokemon. This is really good. Now, here's the thing, right? Reducing damage done by 10 is fine. That in and of itself is not particularly great. I mean, to be fair, right, we've had plenty of Pokemon in the past like Jinx that have healed 10 damage and seen a little bit of play. Jinx was briefly fairly popular with Seismitoad to throw off some numbers, especially in the mirror match, so this was kind of cool. And this basically preempts that. It reduces damage done by 10. But here's the thing. Reducing damage done by 10 is fine, and in theory you can pile a whole bunch more Alolan Dugtrio on the field. You get 4 of them out, you're reducing damage done by 40. Although even 10 could make a difference. If we take something like Registeel, it's got 130 HP, so it should survive a hit from Zoroark that generally does 120 with a full bench. But then Zoroark comes in with a devoured field and goes up to 130. Registeel would be KO'd, except you've now got Alolan Dugtrio, it saves you. It can be the difference. But we've got some other things here. At the moment, we have Metal Frying Pan, and in Team Up, we are getting Metal Goggles. Both of which, when attached to a metal Pokemon, reduce damage done to that Pokemon by 30. Gives you that little extra bit of survivability. Now, Metal Frying Pan also takes away your weakness, which can be really relevant. Metal Pokemon tend to be weak to fire. Blacephalon is one of the best Pokemon in the format. And then Metal Goggles reduces damage done by 30 and stops your opponent dropping damage counters onto that Pokemon. One of the best uses for this really is Decidueye, that of course really does like dropping damage counters, and it is attacks and abilities you stop with the damage counters, not just attacks, not just abilities. So essentially, are you worried about weakness, or are you worried about something like Decidueye or anything that drops damage counters? That is going to largely be what drives your decision here. But these tools are not the only thing we have at the moment. Just the other day, I showed you Lucario and Melmetal Tag Team GX. I'll pop a link to that video in the description. Go check it out. They are looking like a very nice pair indeed. But their GX attack for 1 colorless energy says that for the rest of the game, your metal Pokemon take 30 less damage from your opponent's attacks. So now, Metal Frying Pan reduces it by 30, and Lucario and Melmetal reduces by 30, and then you've got Alolan Dugtrio coming in, and that puts it down by 10. So there's 70, or even 100 with 4 Alolan Dugtrio. To be clear, right, 4 Alolan Dugtrio is not particularly realistic, because you need a bench space for Lucario and Melmetal. In theory, what you really want to do is play Ace Roller to pick it up before it can be KO'd and give up free prizes. But having said that, it's going to get the same protection as all your other Metal Pokemon, and it's got a natural 260 HP, so it should be able to take a hit. So this adds up very nicely. And actually, if you go into the expanded format, you've got Reverse Valley, which is a stadium which reduces damage done to you by 10. And you've got Shield Energy, which is a special energy, which reduces damage done to you by 10. So quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, there are a whole bunch of options here. And there are some Pokemon that can take advantage of this better than other Pokemon. So might I suggest Steelix from Celestial Storm. There's nothing too special about this. It's a Stage 1 Metal Pokemon. It's got 190 HP. And 190 HP on a Stage 1 non-GX is exceptionally high. And that's what's good about Steelix here. That is essentially the selling point of Steelix. You are a big Pokemon. You block. That is what you do. But then, of course, you add a Metal Frying Pan, and then you use Lucario and Melmetal GX's GX attack, and then you pop an Alolan Dugtrio into play, and now all of a sudden it's got 190 HP, but you are reducing damage done to it by 70. Incidentally, this does have a retreat cost of 4, so in theory you could instead use Brawny Pads to give it an extra 50 HP. But when you're reducing damage by this much, you want something like Metal Frying Pan. The general rule is to prevent a one-hit KO, you go for Brawny Pads because it's 50, but if your opponent can't one-hit KO, you go Metal Frying Pan, because 2 attacks, it's 60, 3, it's 90, etc. So because Steelix is unlikely to get one-hit KO'd, you do want Metal Frying Pan or Goggles over something like Brawny Pads. And Steelix is played generally without energy, so you can use something like Max Potion and Ace Roller to heal up. And if you've got 190 HP and damage done to you is reduced by 70, that is going to be pretty sweet. And bearing in mind, this is just a tool, an early game GX attack, and remember, if you use an early game GX attack, Hala becomes Hala good, and 1 Stage 1 Pokemon. And there's nothing to stop you playing more than one Alolan Dugtrio, getting more than one of these abilities, and reducing damage done to you by more than 10. Want another example? How about Scizor? Scizor is another Stage 1 Metal Pokemon. Now, it's not quite as naturally beefy as Steelix. It, in fact, only has 120 HP. But it does have an ability that reduces damage done to it by 30. And actually a really nice attack for 2 energy that does 130 to any Pokemon that has special energy attached. And with stuff like double colorless energy, there's quite a lot of special energy running around at the moment. So you're reducing damage done by 30. With Metal Frying Pan, it's 60. GX attack is 90. 1 ability, 100 damage. Which means something like a Zoroark of a full bench is doing 20 damage per turn. Something like a Buzzwole using Jet Punch with a Diancie Prism Star is doing absolutely nothing. Even if Buzzwole goes ahead and uses Knuckle Impact to do 160, and they've got a Diancie Prism Star, they're actually doing 80 damage. This adds up crazy quickly. And while we're here, don't forget that Melmetal GX basically has the same ability as Scizor in that you reduce damage done by 30, which means 1 tool, GX attack, 1 Alolan Dugtrio, reducing damage by 100, with the added advantage that you've got 220 HP here. This gets silly. I'll give you one more example, ladies and gentlemen. How about Genesect GX? Genesect GX has an ability that lets it have 2 tools attached. So you can go double Metal Frying Pan, although honestly 1 Frying Pan, 1 Goggles would be better, because then no weakness and you're preventing damage counters, and then that gives you 60, plus the GX attack is 90, plus Alolan Dugtrio is 100. And this just gives Metal Pokemon so much beef. And I've been running the calculations in this video, generally assuming you've got one Alolan Dugtrio in play, but you might have 2 or 3, and in that situation, this gets fun. Now, there is an attack here. It does Metal for a colourless for 40 damage. It's not good. I'm sorry. I mean, you'll KO a routes because of the weakness, yay! But against non-GXs like Grand Ball, you're not even close. And against GXs like Sylveon with a Choice Band, you're not even close. So I just don't particularly care. But it's not about the attack, it's about the ability for Alolan Dugtrio. And Alolan Dugtrio, you could argue that between the GX attack and the tools and all of that, we don't need it. Or you could argue that this just builds upon a strength and can take Pokemon just out of KO range. For that reason, I'm giving it between 3 and 4 Wossies. We don't give half Wossies. That would be barbaric. I think in the very near future, we're going to see some of these metal decks going a little bit nuts. Speaking of which, do let me know in the comment section what you think about this card and all the other metal support. Do go nuts! But remember the most important rule as always, be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays. We are in Wave 2 Transformers TCG spoiler country, and it's a beautiful part of the country. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.